Sometimes you enter a place that feels softer than the world outside. The light is gentle, the chairs are arranged carefully, nothing is sharp, nothing is loud. Even the air seems slower here. People speak in calm voices. They choose their words with care. No one wants to disturb the atmosphere. The room is built for comfort, and everyone can feel it. You notice the signs first, small reminders about kindness, about respect, about listening. They are simple messages, easy to agree with. They set the tone before anyone says anything else. The chairs are close together, but not too close, just enough to feel connected, just enough to feel safe. When someone speaks, others nod quietly. The reaction is warm, encouraging. No one interrupts. The room does not feel strict. That is what makes it powerful. Nothing here looks like a rule. It looks like consideration, like maturity, like people who understand each other. Certain words appear often. Words like support, understanding, safety. They float gently through the space. The language is careful, almost protective. You begin to notice something else. Disagreement is rare, not impossible, just unusual. When someone begins to question something, the room shifts slightly. The tone becomes softer. The response becomes slower. People do not argue, they reassure. Maybe that's not the point right now. Maybe that topic is sensitive. Maybe we should focus on what helps everyone feel comfortable. The room returns to calm quickly. That is the goal. Calm is the signal that everything is working. It becomes clear that comfort is not only the atmosphere here, it is the purpose. The space rewards certain behaviors: patience, agreement, gentle language. It feels good to participate in that rhythm. You feel included when you move with it. No one explains the boundaries directly. They do not need to. You learn them by watching how the room breathes, what brings warmth, what brings silence, what brings the conversation back to safety. Soon, the pattern becomes easy to follow. You realize the room does not prevent difficult ideas. It simply surrounds them with softness until they become smaller. Nothing feels forced, nothing feels controlled. The room only asks for one thing: keep the comfort intact. This is where Jung would look more closely at the comfort, not the warmth itself, but the need behind it. The part of the mind that longs for a place where nothing sharp can reach you. Everyone carries that need. The world outside is uncertain, people disagree. Words can wound. Ideas can challenge who we think we are. A safe space promises relief from that. Jung understood how powerful that promise can be. When people feel exposed, they look for protection, not only from others, but from parts of themselves. Doubt, anger, confusion. These feelings are difficult to carry in public. A soft room makes them easier to hide. The safe space welcomes certain emotions: kindness, vulnerability, support. Those are allowed to speak freely. Other emotions begin to fade from the conversation: frustration, sharp criticism, uncomfortable questions. These do not disappear, but they become harder to show. Jung would say the shadow begins here. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of ourselves that does not fit the image we want to present. When a group values calm and kindness above all else, the rougher parts of human nature move quietly underground. People learn this quickly. If anger appears, it is softened. If disagreement grows too strong, it is gently redirected. The room protects its atmosphere first. Emotional safety becomes the highest priority. At first, this feels like maturity, like people choosing compassion over conflict. And sometimes that is true. But Jung would watch what happens to the thoughts that cannot be spoken easily, the questions that feel too disruptive, the reactions that might disturb the harmony. They do not vanish. They wait. The shadow grows not through rebellion, but through silence, through things that remain unsaid, through ideas that people keep to themselves because they do not want to break the mood. Over time, people begin to adjust their inner voice. Before speaking, they check if their thought will fit the space. If it feels too sharp, they reshape it. If it feels too direct, they soften it. This happens quietly, almost automatically. The safe space does not forbid truth. It simply rewards the kind of truth that keeps everyone comfortable. And when comfort becomes the most important value in the room, people slowly learn to hide the parts of themselves that might disturb it. This is where Friedrich Nietzsche would begin to listen to the tone of the room. Not what people say, but what they praise. In a safe space, kindness quickly becomes the highest virtue. That seems natural. Who would argue against kindness? Who would want a place where people feel attacked? But Nietzsche would notice how the idea slowly grows. Kindness becomes more than behavior. It becomes morality. To be good is to be gentle, to be respectful, to avoid words that might disturb the atmosphere. Soon, people begin to measure themselves by this standard, not by what they believe, but by how comfortably they fit the room. A person who speaks softly is seen as thoughtful. A person who questions too directly feels harsh. The difference is not about truth, it is about tone. The safe space rewards the kind of speech that keeps the circle calm. This changes the meaning of disagreement. Instead of two ideas meeting each other, disagreement starts to feel like a disruption, something that breaks the harmony everyone is trying to maintain. Nietzsche warned about moral systems that prefer peace over honesty. When harmony becomes the highest value, truth begins to move more carefully. People learn to reshape their words before they speak them. They soften criticism. They wrap sharp ideas in gentle language. They avoid saying things that might make the room uncomfortable. Over time, a new form of morality appears. Not a morality of good and evil, but a morality of comfort and discomfort. If something creates tension, it must be wrong. If something keeps everyone relaxed, it must be right. The room begins to guide behavior without ever giving an order. People watch each other closely. They notice which words receive warm nods and which ones cause silence. Slowly, they adjust. The safest position becomes agreement. Not loud agreement. Quiet agreement. The kind that keeps the atmosphere intact. Nietzsche would recognize the pattern. When harmony becomes sacred, courage begins to look like rudeness. And the room does not need rules to enforce this. The desire to remain kind, respectful, and safe is enough. In time, people stop asking what is true. They begin asking a different question. Will this make the room uncomfortable? This is where Machiavelli would stop listening to the language of care and begin watching the structure of the room. Not the kindness, not the support, but the arrangement. The safe space appears open. People are encouraged to speak, to share, to express themselves. At first glance, nothing seems restricted, but Machiavelli would notice how the space quietly organizes behavior. Certain ideas move easily through the room. They receive attention. They are welcomed, repeated, expanded. Other ideas slow down. They are softened, redirected, or left behind. Not because someone forbids them, but because they do not fit the atmosphere. Power here does not raise its voice. It shapes the conditions. When comfort becomes the highest priority, the room begins to regulate itself. People protect the atmosphere together. No one wants to be the one who disrupts the safety that everyone values. Machiavelli understood that this is one of the most effective forms of control. No force is required. If the group believes that harmony must be preserved, individuals will correct themselves before anyone else needs to intervene. A difficult question will be softened. A sharp criticism will be reshaped. A controversial thought will remain unspoken. Not because it is illegal, because it feels inappropriate. Power hides inside that feeling. The structure of the room determines which voices feel legitimate. The closer an idea stays to the language of comfort, the easier it travels. Ideas that disturb the atmosphere struggle to survive. The safe space becomes a filter. It does not block disagreement directly. It simply rewards the kind of disagreement that remains gentle, careful, and safe. Over time, this changes the conversation itself. The range of acceptable thoughts becomes narrower, even while the room still appears welcoming. Machiavelli would recognize the elegance of this system. The people inside believe they are protecting each other. In reality, they are protecting the structure. Power no longer needs to enforce silence. The atmosphere does that work quietly, and the safest voices, the most careful voices, rise naturally to the center of the conversation. Not because they are the most truthful, but because they keep the room comfortable. This is where Hill would listen for the promise inside the comfort. Not the rules of the room, the reassurance. The safe space does more than protect people. It offers a vision of how things could work if everyone simply followed the same principle. Be kind. Be careful. Protect each other. It sounds simple, almost obvious. Hill believed belief grows strongest when the promise feels both noble and achievable. The safe space offers exactly that. A place where conflict softens, where people feel heard, where no one has to stand alone against the room. It feels like progress. People begin to trust the atmosphere itself. If everyone stays respectful, the room will stay calm. If the room stays calm, good things can happen. Conversations will move forward. People will grow. Belief forms quietly in that rhythm. Not belief in a leader, belief in the system. The safe space becomes something people want to defend, not because they are forced to, but because they feel responsible for it. When tension appears, the room responds quickly. Voices lower, words soften. Someone reminds everyone of the purpose. We're here to support each other. We're here to keep this space safe. And the atmosphere returns. Hill would notice how powerful this cycle becomes. The more people protect the comfort feels valuable. The more valuable it feels, the more people believe in it. Soon, the room begins to represent something larger. Not just a place, a model. If conversations everywhere were this respectful, if disagreements everywhere were this gentle, if people everywhere protected each other's feelings, then the world itself might become safer. The promise is beautiful, it feels hopeful. But Hill would also notice something else. Belief in comfort can grow so strong that people begin to fear the opposite. Conflict starts to look dangerous. Hard questions feel like threats to the system. The safe space was built to protect people. But over time, people begin protecting the safe space. And once that happens, the room no longer needs rules to survive. Belief keeps it alive.